Hey guys, it's Matt. Reality sees to it that politics or elections get lower and lower as time goes by, more and more ridiculous. And just when we thought it couldn't get any lower, what happened here in Pennsylvania, outside Philadelphia, is where I am, is absolutely mind-boggling absurd for anybody that's not in the United States. We have midterm elections halfway between the presidential cycle. This is the big deal, other than the presidential election itself. And Pennsylvania sent a man to the United States Senate that literally can't put a sentence together. His name is John Fetterman. He defeated Dr. Oz. We had the biggest clown show election of all time here in Pennsylvania. He can't put a sentence together. The news reports that he had a stroke 5, 6, or 7 months ago. He was basically incoherent, or not incoherent, that's not the right word. In the debate, I don't know, like the debating club from your elementary school could have cleaned his clock. Yet this person is going to the United States Senate. If anybody is new here to this channel, I don't think it was a legitimate election. Whether they count the votes or not, or whether they allow the true winner to get to Washington. Mr. Smith goes to Washington, Mr. Fetterman goes to Washington. It doesn't matter. They're going to serve their masters. They're going to do exactly what they told. So it's all a show, of course. But for some reason, the reality itself like needs to present like a political race that's more and more ridiculous each and every cycle, and nobody ever wakes up to it. People just go along with it. It's unbelievable. I talked to a relative yesterday who asked me if I voted on Tuesday. And they should know my kind of where I'm coming from by now. I kind of have a reputation in my circle of friends and family about the things I believe about this world. And I reminded them that no, I didn't vote and I'll never vote again for the rest of my life. And they're, oh yeah, I figured, Matt, you would be like that. And well, I went, and then they started telling me the story about them going to the polling place. Like I really would want to hear that. I went to the polling place, and it's usually so crowded. It was completely empty, or it was like crickets. I said, well, that's wonderful. Maybe people are waking up and not wasting their time. And I made that video, that kind of a funny video with the different voices on Voxel, I guess about a year ago. What if the world just simply stayed home and did not vote? I said, that's great. I said, isn't that telling you people are just tired of it and they're not going to go to the polls? I mean, why did you go to the polls? About a year ago, we talked about, if a T-shirt was going to be made up, what would it say? And you can't put a lot on a T-shirt. You're not going to wake anybody up from a T-shirt. But if I had to choose now, and I guess I will probably just get this made up at some point, I would just put in very large font. Well, maybe it doesn't have to be that large, just as long as people can see it. No longer fooled. That's all you can do, or all we could possibly do in terms of a T-shirt. No longer fooled, and then hope, one person in 10 years, every 10 years that you wear the T-shirt, one person comes by and says, "What does that mean?" And if they did that, that means that deep down they're probably a real person that needs to or would like to wake up as well, or exit the matrix. Most people will, obviously thousands could walk by you with that T-shirt, will never say anything, and that's assuming the ones that will actually read it. No longer fooled. Has to be simple, and I think if I had to pick one, that's what I would pick. I toyed with just politics is fake. It's just not, I don't know. It's just not good enough. No longer fooled isn't great either, but what else are you going to do? Put a gigantic white paper treatise on your T-shirt? People will come up and read it? No, that's all you can do. And the idea would be you'll never wake the masses up or get anybody from the zombified hordes to come over, but you could attract other people that are in our camp or would like to be. in our camp or feel isolated. Potentially that one person a year could come up and what does that mean? And if they did, that's somebody like us. So if anybody has a final T-shirt idea, we haven't done anything or nothing formal. I'm not going to get involved. And I mean, I said this before. People came to me, Matt, let's do this business idea with the team. I'm not. I just want to make videos here, guys. I don't. People ask me if I want to sponsor this or that. I don't want to do anything but simply make videos here and collect enough $5 a month or whatever to simply subsist. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do any business opportunity. I don't want to. I simply want to do what I'm doing now for as long as I can do it, because this is the best way I can contribute at this point to quote help, whatever that means, as Zara gets tangled up as usual in the cord and shows its ass again. Zara, there you go. Show your face, Zara. Not nobody wants to see your ass all the time. So, guys, I think yeah, I'll go back and I hope I will remember to put a picture in of what this caricature John Fetterman looks like. Um, is he aware of the role he's playing for this not milk system? Absolutely not. Even is Dr. Oz? No, they are not. This is why I say hardly anybody's in on it. We can step back and see how these caricatures are simply playing a role in a script that was laid out a long time ago. Um, whether the election was predetermined or again, I don't think it really matters because whoever gets in will serve their masters. They're not gonna be their own man. And if a senator or congressman appears to be their own person, and somebody believes like Ron Paul is or Rand Paul is he still in there? I have no idea, but none of them are their own people. They to get to that level, you have to serve the masters or you'll be out. So I don't. But the incredible evil genius in the way it does business is you could John Fetterman. John Fetterman, tell me about the men in black that sat you down and talked to you and told you. I don't. I think if the news stories about his what happened to him, the stroke, and why he cannot put a sentence together. If those news stories and what is said is to be believed, then he has no idea. I mean, there's a small chance that he is I can't say the name, a blabby. When somebody talks a lot, they blabbermouth, blab, a blabby. And then Monday Night Football, my favorite announcer on Monday Night Football was not O.J. Simpson. It was Frank Giffords, and he was blabby. Could it be that? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But I don't know. If that's the case, of course he has to be fully in the know as to. But it doesn't matter, I guess, whether they're all in the know or none of them are in the know. They all execute the same clown show. They all read their same scripted lines. Whether they know they're reading scripted lines or not, they do it. So it doesn't matter. And again, it's almost that same principle where I put that video out a few months ago about all of reality is a hillbilly truck and tractor pull, where it continuously moves the bar. Reality itself as a whole continuously moves the bar to more and more absurd levels. I think in an effort to get people to notice, in an effort to wake people up. This whole reality, for those that are ready to exit the matrix, is a wake up exercise. So it moves the bar. The creeps fulfill this role, I believe, moves the bar to more and more absurd levels. And, we noticed it how many ever years ago. We all have a different timeline on when we woke up to everything. But it's kind of getting to the point where, what is it, the cabin in the woods? If there were controllers like the cabin in the woods and the Illuminati Control Center, they're going, I think we've gotten everybody we're going to get. We can't move the bar to a more absurd level, basically, than we already have. We're not allowed to get everybody at once, you know. John Fetterman just comes out for the debate, rips his shirt off and rolls around on the floor for an hour, and then he's elected to the East. And he still may be, somebody's screaming at me, throwing rubber duckies. He still could be potentially elected to the United States Senate because, of course, it was, I mean, of course, this just goes without saying, but I need to acknowledge it. There's people in all different countries watching this, or and I'm sure in your countries it's no different than here, but it's not a vote for the man. There were two men running for U.S. Senate, if I can call them that. It's an ideology vote. Of course, it's an ideology vote based 60% on abortion, maybe 50%, but that's a huge. Well, I don't want to say maybe at least 40%, especially with what they did inserting the most recent act in the script with the overturning of Roe versus Wade in the United States. I mean, no legitimate Supreme Court people sat down to review the findings of Roe versus Wade and make a new determination based on modern standards or a different interpretation of the Constitution. I mean, of course, it's a gigantic script. Of course, it's just what is playing now. This act is playing, and I mean, Roe versus Wade, what they did to it was probably primarily meant to energize the midterm elections, where there may have been almost no interest. I mean, I believe my relative when they went in the polling place, it was like crickets. Those people, they don't. The fact that they didn't go into the polling place, they don't see what we see. But just deep down, they're just fed up. They would still call us a conspiracy theorist for all the things that we believe in, but they're just fed up with the whole thing. Maybe they're very smart and inner knowing inside them, if they're real spirited beings or they're unconscious or subconscious, realizes that this is ridiculous, and let's just don't bother voting. They're not going to believe us, where we say, well, whoever goes into the Senate is just going to serve a general master that's going to tell them what to do and how to vote. They're not going to believe that, but there's just a general malaise with the populace. Whether most people still, of course, are fooled compared to us, but they needed to throw a whole bottle of lighter fluid onto the fire to create some interest around this midterm election, like with what's happening with Herschel Walker. Again, I don't follow it. I'm inundated with Pennsylvania stuff. I know that John Fetterman won here over Dr. Oz, but Herschel Walker in Georgia, I have no idea. I don't care to know. But of course, it's the abortion uh, quote ruling was used to create interest in desperate attempt to create interest for the midterm elections. And anyway, guys, I have some notes here. Enough on this political bullcrap. Let me see what else there is to discuss. All right, guys, a Twitter box is two up. They moved it up years ago to 280 characters, and I looked it up, and it's between usually 40 to 70 words. And in a video coming up just in a few days, I'm going to try to put Bootsy's yelling for food. You probably can't hear that. Bootsy, give me a minute. I'm going to try to put all of reality, my understanding of all of reality and our place in it as a real being of spirit that is beyond this material realm. I'm going to try to put all of it. I talk about the half page. I'm going to put it into a Twitter box. I don't use Twitter, but I'm not going to go past, let's just pick right now, if it's 40 to 70 words, we'll pick 65 words. No, somebody will think that's like some 11 drop. I'll pick 60 words. I'll put all of reality, my understanding of reality, into 60 words so we can put it into a Twitter box. And Matt, aren't you going to struggle to do that? I don't think it'll be a struggle. I think it's simple. I really do. I think it's simple. The more complicated they make it, the simpler it becomes to me. I really don't think it'll be that hard. I mean, won't be able to bring certain people that haven't been here for a while up to speed as to what I mean in certain areas, but I don't think it'll be hard. So I'm going to do that in the next few days, put all of reality in our place, my understanding of our place in it, into a Twitter box, limited to 60 words. And then What was the axiom that I'm gonna need to do a whole nother video on this axiom? What's the difference between an axiom or a corollary? I don't know. We'll pick axiom. Re-recording because I presented the axiom and forgot a whole section of it. So also an axiom versus like a theory. Axioms like this is right 100% of the time. I mean, you can bank on it. It has to be completely bulletproof if you're going to present it as an axiom. So I'll present the case in a future video, and it'll be up to you guys to try to poke holes in it or find examples that don't apply to it. Then it'll have to be, ratcheted down to just a general theory. We'll have to readjust the term. But the axiom will be something like this when I do the video on it. This is why I have enemies inside the truth community. It puts them all out of business. It's basically, again, the half page kind of puts a lot of people out of business too. I'm not trying to put any people out of business. I'm trying to present truth the way I understand it and see it. It is a half page. So the axiom is a search for truth outside of yourself is pointless, or you could say parentheses, even harmful, unless it tells you something about yourself and your true nature. Now, I've thought about that a lot. I don't think there's any example that can poke a hole in that. I'll say it again. I'll say it a few more times if you didn't get that. The search for truth outside of yourself is pointless, parentheses, and even many cases harmful, probably in most cases harmful, unless that search outside yourself, not to understand yourself, but to understand whatever's out there, tells you something about yourself or your true nature or what you're here on earth to do. I think that is rock solid, and I'm not sure any holes could be poked in that. So let's just take what we were talking about earlier, politics. Matt, how many of the congressmen, I know that's one down from the Senate, the House of Representatives, and those buffoons, how many really know what's going on? Like, they're how many are in on it? Like, they really understand the inner workings of how this reality works. And I guess, okay, it's fun to debate, but okay, that's just trying to determine what members of the House of Representatives know about how things work here. Well, it's pointless or harmful to keep trying to figure that out unless it tells something about ourselves. Let's say I figure it out, and only Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, and the whip, whatever a whip is, they're in the know, and everybody else just gets in 2 years at a time. The House of Representatives, literally a collection of buffoons that are always in an election cycle because it's every 2 years, and they, whatever they know or not know, in my opinion, they don't know much of anything. But to keep trying to determine that is a pursuit outside yourself that is pointless and in sometimes harmful. Let's say we figure it out. What does that do for you? What does that do for your understanding of what you're here to do for yourself in the limited time we have left? I'm sorry, these are good people that pursue a lot of these pursuits, but I'll just use mud flood, as another example. I'm not trying to pick fights with mud flood channels, but my thoughts on this. The whole reality collectively is set up to be a distraction. So we figure out mud flood. Any pursuit outside of ourselves that doesn't tell us about ourselves is either pointless or harmful. Does figuring out what happened with the mud flood tell us about ourselves? And what does that mean? For anybody who's new, tell us about our true nature, that we are not bound to this material plane. There is something else in us, some call soul or spirit, that transcends this place, that we were around before this place. We will be around after this place. This place collectively wants us to believe we are something very, very low, very, very small compared to what we really are. So most of the pursuits, especially in the truth community outside of ourselves, are harmful, not just pointless, because they're harmful in that they just reinforce that we are nothing more than what we appear to exist in here on this place called Earth. the reinforcing of the material uh, versus the spiritual is harmful. That's the whole reality is out to do that from top to bottom. I started to talk about a movie I rewatched called Don't Look Up, and I forgot the name of the actor. The scene with Jonah Hill I wanted to talk about. By the way, Don't Look Up. Absolutely a mockery, of course, of the masses, similar to Idiocracy. There's some truth that comes through it. It's pretty well done. Obviously, I don't like, considering the actors in it, who put it together, a mockery of the masses, but there is some truth that flows out of it, and overall, it's pretty well done. If you haven't seen Don't Look Up, but related to what I was just talking about, okay, at this point, it's determined this asteroid or comet is going to hit, and everybody started. Takes them a while to come around that this is going to basically wipe out the planet. In the movie, Don't Look Up, and jo- Jonah Hill is like, I want to, but let's give a shout out to stuff, something like let an ode or a shout out to stuff. Like if this comet hits, think of all the stuff, the cool things and trinkets and Xboxes that we're gonna lose here, and let's do a shout out to stuff. And yeah, I mean, basically the entire reality is out to do that pretty much to everybody. So the more, I mean, again, it's a Twitter box. All of reality, in my opinion, is a Twitter box, or it's a half page, or it's simple analogies like the Vitruvian Man being pulled into two, like, elephants on each side being pulled on one side of the tug of war is the spiritual side, or the part of you that's potentially not here. This side isn't pulling very hard for most people in this reality. This side is the stuff. You're only your body, all the material pleasures of this place, the seven deadly sins, rewards and seeking applause by its metric, trying to get ahead based on its standards. I mean, think of how hard this end pulls the material side. So once we can see how artificial this side is pulling, it's not a balance anymore. Once we see how artificial it is, then we get into terms like the reality, gives itself away. So, what's the other movie I wanted to mention briefly? Don't Look Up. Oh, okay. Real quick before we return to the axiom and the real important stuff that we're talking about. Real quick, it's called Don't Worry, Baby, right? This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It's like people sent it to me, linked it to me, like Matt, you got to check this out for truth. And it does seem like a movie that like I'm supposed to see for truth or something that could be dropped or something that we could talk about on the channel. But this movie with Chris Pine is literally one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It's cringeworthy. It's hard to watch. There is a little subtle truth that comes through it, um, related to the illusion, the false, the nature of reality. But talk about it. Some magenta flows through. No doubt, it's in a way it's a magenta presentation, very subtly. But I talk about the magenta. Magenta. I can't even say magenta anymore. It's magenta. The magenta bleeds through the reality, but I don't want people to misinterpret that. Of course, it's also planted in key parts like the Bono and Edge Subway concert presentation, and where it's in key movies like what is that? What's it called? So bad I can't even remember. Um, what is it? Darling? Don't worry, darling. Let me just do 30 seconds. If anybody's like, do I have to go see the trailer? Matt, what are you talking about? Chris Pine brings this. Basically, they're living in some false reality under some dome. Everything's fake. Every home is perfect. The grass is perfect. It comes off like WandaVision, like the perfect little fake homes. And a spoiler for 15 seconds if anybody wants to see this turd. It turns out, like surprise, surprise, they were in some sort of false reality with their eyes pinned open like Clockwork Orange. And again, I'm sorry I talked about it as long as I have. So the axiom of looking any pursuit of truth outside of ourselves that doesn't tell us about ourselves is pointless and I guess in most cases, for especially in this truth community, harmful. So Matt, if anybody's new, well, tell us what's a pursuit outside of ourself that tells us about ourself. Isn't every pursuit outside of ourself pointless then or harmful? No. In terms of the elements when we pursue truth, who, what, when, where, why, and how, talked about many times how all those elements are pointless and harmful. That plays into the axiom. Um, oh, what on the big day where the job application was submitted in 2001, let's look at the Pentagon. What exactly happened? What's the who, when, where, what, why, and how of what happened? What was that? Was that a doomsday plane in the air? What was that? Oh, that those types of pursuits are completely useless, and in this case, harmful, because they'll distract a real person from what they're meant. From what they're meant to do. Sometimes I jump onto another theme, and I need to stop that. To distract a real person from what they're meant to do for themselves here on this place called Earth. And it seems like we have a lot of time to figure that out, but we don't, because from their perspective, what this the whole reality with the creeps and the minions in the forefront, from the not milk's perspective, I think they're like, we don't have to distract them very long. They don't have a clue anymore until they're 30 or 35, and then once they're in their 70s and they just want to be left alone, we have that small window where we have to keep them distracted and have so the kids have cello practice and the kids have soccer, and then when the kids leave, then we'll distract them in other ways and keeping up with the Joneses and all that. I don't think it's very hard from the not milk's perspective. We just have this small window where we have to keep these people from finding out about themselves. So the elements are mostly pointless except something that tells us about ourselves. So a good example of that would be what? My favorite example of that is why is it working so hard to distract us? To study the not milk, if people are screaming and throwing their rubber duckies and saying, Matt, all the study of the not milk is a screen exercise. No, it's not. In terms of looking at the not milk's tactics as to why it's working so hard to get our attention, that tells us a tremendous amount about ourselves. So we have this whole it's the theme of and a few people are putting together some sketches of the theme of a very small individual, which we are very small in this body, in this avatar, in this life, standing in front of this immense machine. This is the way, if I could draw, I would draw it. But you guys, present it or draw it however you think is best. Standing in front of this machine, literally 10 times the size of Mount Everest, with all that it's doing to get our attention, from politics that was just presented a few days ago here in Pennsylvania to new movies from Disney coming out, or seeking, should to get the AVP job, honey, in the big corporation, we're going to need to move to Phoenix. And for what? I mean, see, it's just constant distraction. So if you see collectively, it's doing all this gigantic machine the size of Mount Everest, all for little old me. It tells you a lot that you're not little old you. I mean, what's it, you've heard me say this a million times, I'll wrap it up, but what's it working so hard for? That tells us an awful lot about ourselves. I mean, this isn't like a theory. This is just obvious at this point. Why is this? I hope that microphone, guys, isn't like banging against the cord, and hope that sounds okay. I'll check it. But I mean, this is you studying the not milk's tactics and collectively what it's, and you can also see it's out to all of us. It's also out to harvest energy or take your energy. That tells you about yourself and how powerful you are. So there's a lot of ways to look at the not milk that you can still get something out of it that tells you a bit about ourselves. We're not born, we're born Tommy, the deaf, dumb, and blind kid. We need to do these investigations. We don't just immediately know ourselves here. That's the nature of this lifetime. We don't know ourselves. 99 point blah, 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 blah will go their entire lives never knowing themselves and never knowing a bit of themselves, only what society says they were. I mean, so it's okay to study, not know if you can get something. If somebody can come I'll shut up about mud flood. If somebody can come to me and say, Matt, let me present to you why a study of mud flood can tell you about yourself. And if somebody worked that into the nature of the illusion here, but that's not what the mud flood channels do. They're not working it back into understanding their own spiritual nature, are they? Or am I missing something? They're looking at it in and of itself. Well, that's exactly what the Not Milk wants, in my opinion. But let me see if there's anything else in the notes, guys. Yeah, I wanted to talk about Amazon series called The Peripheral, about what we've talked about in the last month or so, virtual reality headsets, the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality. Very briefly, because I have to relate this to The Peripheral on Amazon, which is pretty darn good. I won't give any spoilers away because there's only 4 episodes out. Anyway, virtual reality is, you put the headset on and you're in a completely new place. You're teleported to the top of Mount Everest, but you don't really have any sensation of feel. It's a virtual environment. You're not really there. It just seems like you're there. Augmented reality, you have the glasses on, or the Google glasses, and something appears in front of you, but you're really walking down the street. Your real body is walking down a real street. Pokemon Go, something appears in front of you, a virtual character. You look at the Empire State Building. It says you're looking at the Empire State Building. It's a digital environment over top or overlaid onto the real environment. Somebody throwing rubber duckies. Matt, that's what happened to that's the reality overlay people talk about here. Maybe, but we'll talk about that some other time. Oh, Zara is back. Every time she hears me talking, she's back. So the peripheral takes place in the future, and say the end of the century, and there's a new type of VR headset where when you put the headset on, it's not, I call it immersive reality. It's not augmented or virtual. Somehow, when the actress that stars in it is very good, she was the young prostitute in the movie The Equalizer. She's very good. And the cast of The Peripheral is very strong. Somehow you are there in the virtual environment. You can feel pain. If you die there, you don't really die, but it can cause a lot of harm to your body back in the Ready Player One chair. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it is I'm not, just recommending it to check it out. I mean, it's good, it's not that great, but how they introduce this Not Milk system introduced topics. And one of the, if you could, whoever emailed me about this to explain this to me, if you could email me again so I can learn this, I really would appreciate it. And I'll relate this to the peripheral in a second. But talked about Megan. That that movie Megan is coming out in the early part of January. About this mother gives her daughter of 10, 11, or 12 years old a playmate, and it's like a robotic doll, a cybernetic AI that becomes evil and starts to get out of control. And that's the theory behind Megan. And I said, or I floated in a video, I said, why do why would, if they want people to accept these technologies, why do they scare the heck out of you? Why would they scare us with Megan if they ultimately want us to accept all of these cybernetic or digital or robotic technologies, or the kid from The Sixth Sense in AI, that old movie? And it would apply here to the peripheral. Like, there's some scary things that happen to her. She puts the headset on. Not only it's completely immersive, where she gets beaten up, she's put under, there's a very invasive surgery. She has to basically, like, really horrific, hellish torture. She's basically in the future as well, almost literally through like quantum projection. It's interesting how they present it. I don't know if they really explain it, but I would say to the same person that they did explain it to me once, like Megan, why, if they want us to put these virtual headsets on, of course they do. They want to move the real spiritual being into the digital environment. Maybe that's like the Horcrux from Harry Potter, where you'll trap yourself. Why do they want to scare the heck out of us? Makes sense, right? They want us to adopt it. Shouldn't everything be all roses? And the way the person put it, again, I forget a lot of it, but it was like, it's okay, Matt, from their perspective, if they scare the crap out of you first, because that's how they get your attention. You wouldn't go see Megan if it wasn't scary, right? If it was just a mother gets her 12-year-old kid a playmate and they just play Barbies, and well, nobody would see that. The thing has to go crazy and start doing Chucky on everybody. And the peripheral, nobody would, if she didn't her life wasn't in jeopardy and she wasn't getting, her virtual body wasn't, basically all this horrible stuff was happening, you wouldn't watch it. So they need your attention first. And then that person said something like, over time, they normalize it, or they'll bring it around to the roses where everybody will want it, and everybody will forget the initial horrific nature of the way it was presented. It needs to get you in the door first. It needs to get you in the nightclub. I think that's how it was presented. But if you could email me back on that again, that is exactly right. Um, and we'll talk about that more in the future. But same way with the peripheral. Also, of course, they want everybody on these headsets. Of course. Now, Ready Player One um, didn't really have the horrific part of Ready Player One really wasn't there, not anywhere near like the peripheral. Ready Player One, yeah, there were some dark elements, some bad guys in this thing called the Oasis. You put your headset on, but it was mostly positive. You put your headset on and you're some superhero. You could make your avatar look like Schwarzenegger from Predator. You could make your avatar look like some gigantic minotaur beast. You could fantasize and be whatever you wanted to be. You could win prizes. There are some dark elements, some scary elements in Ready Player One. But in that case, maybe they are starting with the carrot and not the stick. But the peripheral, is if you watch the peripheral, the first four, and somebody hands you this new VR headset from the future, you're not going to put it on. I mean, it is. I mean, there's some horrific things that happens to this poor girl um, that she can't escape from. One last thing, guys, based on this picture I'm looking at from the actors or actresses. Like we can't say that anymore. Actually, they're all actors. Wouldn't that change? Don't Look Up. Want to give a new award out to what I'm going to call an actress here. I'm sorry, but they're not supposed to be called that, but I'm calling her an actress if I'm allowed to do that legally. So we gave a special award out years ago. Guys, the video's over. If you don't want, this is nonsense. If you just, some of you might want to still stick around. Gave that award out to an actor that truly plays himself in every movie, and that would be Matt Damon, of course. Whatever the role may be, Elysium or The Great Wall, there is no character being played. It's simply Matt Damon walking around in a different outfit. But we need to, whatever that award is called, I Play Myself award, which we could morph into I Play With Myself, we want to give it out today to Jennifer Lawrence. I mean, Jennifer Lawrence, if you're listening to me, and I'm sure you probably are, come on, sweetie. You play yourself in every single role. Now, I'm open, if I'm not noticing something about Jennifer Lawrence and this is triggering you, hey, put it in the comments. I hope I'll see it. But whether it be Jennifer Lawrence in Silver Lining Playbook, that's Jennifer Lawrence. There ain't no character. Um, don't Look Up, the pissed off grad assistant student, or what do they call her, PhD candidate. What's her name? Her Kate DiBiase, and Don't Look Up. It's not Kate DiBiase. It's just Jennifer Lawrence. The Mockingjay, The Hunger Games. It's just Jennifer Lawrence. And you know what? And this is real nonsense, but you know what gives us away more than anything else? This is only for true comic book fans. The difference between how Rebecca Romaine Stamos, before she was Stamos, played what's the name? Mystique, the blue mutant in what was she was this one I'm thinking of is X-Men 2. Um, Rebecca Romaine Stamos before she was Stamos, well probably after she was Stamos, plays Mystique incredibly well. This is not a great movie. Had some great scenes, mostly because of this Mystique character and the way Rebecca Romaine Stamos played the character. Then in the new X-Men, the last three movies or something, you have Jennifer Lawrence playing herself as Mystique. Ooh, just doesn't work, sweetie. We need a name for the award. Right now, it's just I Play Myself, and I get $20 million a picture to do it. Jennifer Lawrence. Not good enough, sweetie. Not good enough. Thanks for listening.